I left my wife because she couldn't get over her parents dying, and I don't feel guilty about it. My wife was always very close with her parents, and when they passed away in a car crash 5 years ago, she went into a deep slump. She wouldn't leave her bed, and I took on every chore and cared for our newborn by myself. The problem is, it's been like this for 5 years. For 5 years, she hasn't left her bed. And I mean that literally. She expected me to cook her meals, and when I was at work, she ordered takeout. We hadn't had intimacy in 5 years. I didn't remember the last time she kissed me. She barely speaks to our 6-year-old daughter. I did every household chore myself. I worked 60-hour weeks. I finally worked up the courage, and I decided to put my foot down about everything, for the sake of our kids, for me, and especially for her. I sat next to her on the bed, took her hand gently in mine, and spoke softly. I know it's hard. It's been really hard for both of us, but we can't keep going on like this, stuck in this endless sadness. Our kid missed you. I miss you too. I miss hearing your laugh and seeing your smile. Please, for all of us. Can you try to take even a small step forward with me? I asked her. She looked back at me. I saw a singular tear fall down her cheek. She squeezed my hand weakly and said, I don't know if I can. I was beginning to lose my patience. I told her she had to get up. She had to. I didn't care how sad she felt. She had to get up. She went silent. The air felt heavy. And then I said that I couldn't keep doing this alone. I was tired. She told me that I had no idea of how it felt to lose my parents and refused to speak to me after that. I yelled, You're seriously telling me I don't understand what it's like to lose someone? You were getting your master's degree. You were studying to be something while you were in school. I supported you through everything. I paid for your tuition. I paid for the house that we're living in. I worked almost 70 hours a week to put food on the table for us while trying to be there for our kids. You remember it. During that time, Andrew died. My own brother and I couldn't even attend his funeral because I had to work to put food on our table. When Drew died, I didn't have time to mope around and stay in the bed every day. I had to get up and work even harder for you. For us. I was still here for you. When you decided to leave school in the middle of the semester, I still paid for the full class. When you needed therapy, I paid for it. Whenever you needed a shoulder to cry on or someone to be strong for you, I did it. I was there. I was depressed, Kaylee. I didn't want to get out of bed in the morning. I didn't want to be the only one taking care of Connor, taking him to school every day before I work a 10-hour shift, and not being able to greet him as he gets off the bus. I'm not trying to invalidate your feelings, but after 5 years of grieving, I am tired. Kaylee didn't say anything. She just looked at me. I asked her if she had anything to say, and she stayed silent. This infuriated me because it felt like I was talking to a brick wall. I woke Connor up, and I left the house for the night and got a hotel. I needed some space away. On the drive there, Connor asked me why Mom wasn't coming with us, and I told him that she would rather stay in the bed because she needed some rest. After we left, she kept calling me and texting me. I texted her back that I would see her in the morning, and she sent a text to come back home that instant. But I needed some space from her. I turned my phone on Do Not Disturb, put Connor to bed, and got his clothes ready for school the next morning. While he was asleep, I started writing a letter to give to Kaylee. The next morning, I woke up Connor and drove him to school. Since our home was in between his school and my job, I stopped by the house and dropped off the letter. In it, I told Kaylee how much I loved her and wanted the best for her. I told her again everything that I said the night before, how I was tired and couldn't keep working 50, 60-hour weeks to support our family. While I was the only one taking care of Connor, I was also the only one keeping up with the house, and it was starting to get worse. Clothes and dishes would often pile up in the sink and would still be there when I got home. The rooms were messy if I didn't straighten them up. And you can forget about dusting. After 5 years of keeping this up, I was getting burned out. At the end of the letter, I told her that if she couldn't help me with anything or get out the bed for herself, then I would have to get a divorce. I left the letter on the kitchen counter before work. I would normally buy her breakfast or cook her breakfast, but I didn't have the time that morning, so I knew she would come downstairs and see it. Around 11 odd while I was at work, Kaylee called me and was yelling on the phone. She asked me how I could treat her like that after she lost both of her parents. She said, now I'm making her lose her family. I said that it wasn't the best time to talk about this and that we could talk when I got home. When I got home that night, I was greeted at the door by Kaylee. This was the first time I saw her out of the bed after I got off work in years, but it wasn't a pleasant surprise. She started talking about the letter I dropped off and how I was selfish and a lowlife for wanting to break up our family. She was screaming and throwing things in the living room. She said that I was a failure at being a husband and a dad, and that I would never be half the man her therapist was. She said he would let her express herself, and didn't judge her like I did. I let her get all of her emotions and words out before I got up, wiped the tears on my face, and without a word, I left the house. I drove around, but not to the hotel this time. I drove around the town and tried to clear my head of all the hurtful things she said to me. But under the city lights, all that played through my mind was the last 5 years and the arguments we'd had. I couldn't imagine spending my life without Kaylee, and I thought about how this could affect Connor. I thought about couples therapy. But between the house and the kids and only one income, I knew we wouldn't be able to afford both of our therapists. After everything that happened that night, I slept in the car. No hotel, no house. I just turned off the engine and stayed there, in a supermarket parking lot, staring at nothing while watching the sky change color through the window. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt empty. I felt like a shell, without even the strength to feel guilt. The next morning, I took Connor to school as usual. He asked if we were going back home. I said yes. And it was true. As much as everything in me screamed to run away, I needed to try one more time. For him. Because Connor deserved to grow up with a minimally functional family. And if that meant swallowing my pride and making one more attempt, then so be it. But it would be the last one. I returned home at 9 a.m. Kaylee was awake, sitting on the edge of the bed as if waiting for me. It was strange. There was something mechanical in the way she held the tea mug, something forced in the way she looked at me. No, good morning? Just an uncomfortable silence. I sat in the chair in the corner of the room and took a deep breath. I don't want to fight. I'm not here to accuse you or attack you. I just want to propose something simple. She didn't answer, but she didn't ignore me either, which for me was already progress. I continued, let's do a test. 1 week. Just one. During this week, you will get out of bed every day at 10 in the morning. You'll have breakfast with us. You'll talk to Connor. You'll put him to bed at least once. And if you can, help with one household chore. Just one. It doesn't even have to be every day. It could be putting away the dishes. It could be folding his clothes. Whatever you can manage. But make it real. She remained silent, looking at her mug. I almost gave up at that moment, but then she nodded her head. A weak movement, almost imperceptible. But it was a yes. And it was all I needed. For the first 2 days, I wanted to believe. She appeared in the kitchen at the agreed time. She sat at the table. She didn't say much, but she responded when Connor spoke. She even put her plate in the sink when she finished breakfast. On the 3rd day, she asked what his favorite cartoon was now. I almost cried. I wanted so badly to believe that this was the turning point. That finally, after 5 years of grief and emptiness, she was trying. Really trying. But it only took the 4th day for everything to fall apart. I woke up and Kaylee wasn't in the kitchen. I went to the bedroom. She was still in bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. I asked if she was okay. She said yes. She was just tired. On the 5th day, she didn't even respond. On the 6th, she ordered food on her phone before I got home, even with dinner ready on the table. On the 7th, she slept all day. And she didn't even bother to justify it. On the 8th day, when the week of the agreement ended, I entered the room already knowing what I would find. The dishes she should have put away? Still in the dish rack since Tuesday. The laundry basket? Forgotten in the hallway. And her, motionless, the same as always. Kaylee, I said, stopping at the door. This was your chance. You said you would try. She didn't look at me. She just murmured, I did try. You tried? I asked, holding back the lump in my throat. You got up for 2 days. And you spent the other 5 pretending you couldn't hear Connor calling for you. You didn't try. You acted. And only because you were afraid of divorce. She then turned slowly, and for the first time in days, looked at me. The look wasn't one of sadness, nor anger. It was indifference. And what if it was? She replied, coldly. You were going to leave me anyway. That phrase tore me apart, because deep down, maybe it was true. Maybe I had already decided to leave even before proposing that last attempt. But hearing it from her mouth with such coldness, as if all of this was just a game, it hurt more than any shouting she could have done. I turned my back. I went to Connor's room. He was drawing alone. A little house with 3 stick figures. Dad, son, and the mother erased with a finger. A pencil smudge where once there was a figure. It was there that I understood. that he was already saying everything without words, that Connor was already living with a constant absence, that what I thought was effort for him was just prolonging everyone's pain, including mine. I left the room without making noise. And that night, I began to plan my definitive departure. That Tuesday, the day started too normal for my taste, and that was already a bad sign. Connor woke up with energy, put on his uniform by himself, and came to me with his shoes in hand, asking for help tying them. Kaylee didn't even leave the bedroom. It had been a week since she had broken the schedule, and she didn't even bother to pretend to make an effort anymore. I was late. I had an important meeting, and my boss had already given me 2 subtle warnings about my recurring lateness. I dropped Connor at school, quickly stopped by the market to buy coffee, and arrived at work almost bumping into the time clock. I took a deep breath and dove into the chaos of the company, trying to forget for a few hours that my life outside of there was a minefield. The meeting dragged on. My phone was on silent, as I always did in these situations, so as not to appear inattentive. When it ended, it was almost 6 in the evening. I hurriedly left the room with the uncomfortable feeling that I had forgotten something. I only realized what it was when I unlocked my phone and saw 9 missed calls from the school, 2 from the principal, and a message in all caps. "You forgot your son. If you do not show up within 30 minutes, we will be obliged to contact social services." My heart stopped. Not literally, but it felt like it. I got in the car with trembling hands. I called Kaylee, hoping she had gone to pick him up. Maybe, by some miracle. Maybe. But the phone rang and went straight to voicemail. I called again. Once more. And again. Nothing. The school was already closed when I arrived. A coordinator was waiting for me with her arms crossed. Connor beside her, sitting on a bench with his little eyes red from crying so much. The woman looked at me as if I were a monster. "Sir, we tried to contact the mother as well, but she didn't answer. We had to activate the protocol. A representative from Child Protective Services has already been notified." I apologized 1,000 times. I took Connor in my arms and hugged him tightly, as if that could erase the abandonment he felt for almost 2 hours. He forgave me immediately, as only children do. He said he understood and that the school lady stayed with him and even gave him cookies. But I knew. I saw it in his eyes. That would leave a mark. When I got home, Kaylee was in the bedroom, lying down, looking at the ceiling, the same position as always. The phone on the nightstand, screen facing down. I entered like a hurricane. "You didn't even see that the school called? You didn't even bother to get up?" She blinked slowly, without any hurry. "I had a headache." "A headache? Kaylee, the school called 10 times. Connor was waiting for more than an hour alone. Social services were notified. Do you understand what that means?" She then got up slowly, with a tranquility that turned my stomach. She crossed her arms and said disdainfully, "You didn't have to forget about him. That's your job, remember? My job? You're his mother. Do you think it's normal not to get out of bed or even answer the phone when your son might be in danger? Oh, of course. Now everything is my fault. You want to paint me as a monster just to have a clean reason to leave me? But it won't be that easy. This isn't about leaving you, Kaylee. It's about Connor. He's suffering. You're too blind in your pain to realize what you're doing to him. To us. This isn't grief anymore. It's neglect." She then walked up to me, eyes wide and voice trembling with anger. "You think you can judge me? You have no idea what it's like to lose everything at once. I lost my parents, my foundations. I died with them. Don't you understand?" "I do understand, because I lost 2. I lost my brother. I lost my marriage. I lost the woman you were. And I'm about to lose my son because you can't get out of the damn bed." She then took a step back, took a deep breath, and said something that chilled me. "If you try to take Connor from me, I swear I'll fight to the end. I'll ask for custody, and I'll use everything I have, my diagnosis, my history, my consultations, to show that the problem here is you. You're threatening to take Connor from me? After everything I've done? After 5 years of playing both father and mother alone? You want war? You'll have it." I stood still. My throat locked. She was serious. For the first time in years, I saw energy in her eyes. But it was anger, not hope. It was as if I were the enemy. As if she had woken up not to rebuild, but to destroy. I went up to Connor's room and closed the door. He was sleeping, clutching the old teddy bear my mother had given him when he was born. I sat on the floor and began to cry softly, not knowing what hurt more, the fear of losing him or the guilt for not having done this before. That night, I made my decision. The next morning, after a sleepless night full of voices in my head repeating everything Kaylee had said, I did what I should have done a long time ago. I waited for Connor to go to school and went straight to the law office that a friend had recommended to me months ago. At the time, I didn't have the courage. Now, it was this or lose my son. The lawyer listened to me carefully. She didn't interrupt, didn't judge me. She just took notes while I explained the last 5 years of my life, how Kaylee had spent all this time without getting out of bed, how I took care of everything alone, how she showed no affection for our son, and about the incident at school that involved social services. When I finished, she took a deep breath and said, "This won't be easy. The mother has legal advantages in disputes like this, especially if she can justify her inertia with medical reports. But you have history, you have evidence, and you have the truth, and that matters." We started the process the same day. I gathered medical receipts, old photos of the state of the house, ignored messages, school records, reports from the pediatrician, and even notes from Connor himself that he wrote and left in the hallway outside his mother's room. Simple things, but devastating. Like, "Mommy, today I did well in school." Or, "We could watch a movie together." I went to sleep lighter that night. For the first time, I felt that I was doing something not just for myself, but for my son. But Kaylee didn't stay quiet for long. In less than 48 hours, my mother-in-law, who had always been absent, it should be said, sent me a 4-minute voice message calling me a coward, selfish, and insensitive. She said that women who lose their parents carry pains that men will never understand, and that instead of supporting my wife, I was trying to destroy her. By the end of that week, half of our acquaintances had blocked me or sent indirect messages on social media. A cousin of Kaylee's even posted an indignant text saying that there are men who only want happy and smiling wives, but don't know how to be husbands when they are in pieces. There was even a hashtag. And likes. Many. But nobody knew. Nobody was there at 3 a.m. when Connor had a fever and I ran alone with him to the hospital. Nobody saw the piles of dirty clothes accumulating, nor the forgotten birthdays, nor Connor's looks begging for a mother who didn't come. Nobody knew how many times I cried in the bathroom, in the car, at work, hidden even from myself. But I knew. And that was enough. I stayed firm. With discretion. I responded to everything with silence. I let the attacks pass like wind. My focus was Connor. He began to change. It was subtle at first. He started singing softly in the bath. Then he asked to take his favorite snack to school. He started telling me more stories about his day, asked to decorate his room with dinosaur stickers, and one day, without me asking, he hugged me tightly and said, "Daddy, I like when it's just us. It's calmer." That hurt. But it also gave me strength. My house no longer seemed like a war zone. The silence was no longer heavy. Kaylee's absence, though tragic, brought relief. Sad, but true. Meanwhile, Kaylee continued trying to manipulate the narrative. She told the social worker that I was alienating our son. She said that I forbade her from seeing Connor, when in fact she simply never tried. The social worker wanted to schedule a supervised visit. I agreed. I wanted to show that I had nothing to hide. On the day of the visit, Kaylee appeared with a pale and haggard expression, but for the first time, wearing makeup, as if she wanted to act like she was getting better. Connor was tense. He didn't know whether to hug her or run away. When the social worker called the two of them to talk alone, he hesitated. He looked at me, insecure. I said, "Go on, son. It's okay." After the visit, the professional pulled me aside and he said very serious things. "I can't share them yet for legal reasons, but just continue with this process. He needs you." I understood everything without another word. Kaylee didn't know, but the son she barely saw now had a voice, and he was, finally, being heard. The legal battle was far from over, but inside me something had already changed. The guilt I had carried for 5 years was finally being replaced by courage. The day of the hearing arrived. I barely slept the night before. I spent hours looking at the ceiling, listening to Connor's light breathing in the room next door, trying not to be crushed by the fear of what could happen. Because, despite everything, an irrational part of me still believed that in the end, everything could be distorted against me. I wasn't perfect. I had shouted. I had lost my patience. And I knew how the system could sometimes treat mother's pain as an excuse for everything. When I entered the courthouse, Kaylee was already there. Hair tied up any old way, dark clothes, empty look. But different from what I expected, she was surrounded by people. Relatives, friends, even a therapist she had brought to testify in her favor. The game was set. My lawyer asked me to keep calm. "They will try to provoke you. Let them burn themselves," she said. And that's what I did. The hearing was long. Kaylee's lawyer began by painting her as a woman devastated by tragedy, a victim of circumstances, a mother who just needed support to get back on her feet. It was convincing. I saw faces in the room nodding, with pity. But then it was our turn. My lawyer presented the evidence. Dated photos showing the state of the house. Medical reports indicating emotional abandonment. School reports recording the mother's absence at meetings, activities, and important dates. Letters from teachers talking about Connor's withdrawn behavior. And then, the notes. Small, torn, simple, but speaking more than any testimony. "Today was my birthday. Mommy forgot. It's okay. I did well in the soccer game. I wish Mommy had seen." The silence in the room was heavy. Even the judge seemed to swallow hard. They called the social worker who had supervised the visit. She, serious, said, "The minor demonstrated discomfort, anxiety, and sadness regarding his mother, and he spontaneously reported episodes of emotional neglect consistent over years." Kaylee, who until then had maintained control, began to fidget in her chair. She snorted, whispered to her lawyer, and when she realized she was losing, she lost control completely. She suddenly stood up and shouted, "It's a lie. All lies. He manipulated my son against me. He did this. I lost everything because of him." The judge banged the gavel on the bench and called for order. 2 security guards approached. Kaylee pushed one of them, trying to return to the front of the courtroom, screaming, "You don't know what he did to me. I was the victim. I deserve custody. I am the mother." She was forcibly removed, crying, screaming, cursing everyone there. I remained motionless. I wanted to disappear. I didn't feel victory. I didn't feel immediate relief. I felt shame. I felt sadness. Because seeing the woman I had loved degrade herself that way in front of everyone was like watching an accident in slow motion, unable to do anything. The judge, serious, resumed the session and read the decision. Primary custody will be granted to the father. The mother will have the right to supervised visits, conditional on future psychiatric evaluations. And so, the sentence was delivered. When we left the courthouse, the first thing I did was call the school and ask to release Connor early. When he ran toward me in the parking lot, hugging my legs, I broke down. I crouched on the ground, hugged him tightly, and cried without shame. It took weeks to process everything. At first, Connor asked about his mother almost every day. I just said that she was trying to get better, and that he could see her later, with the presence of a trusted adult. He accepted the answer, sad but serene. With time, the questions decreased. His drawings changed. Instead of broken houses or faceless figures, he began to draw parks, trucks, animals. He started to laugh more, to ask to ride his bicycle, to make plans. I still carried pain. I still sometimes woke up in the middle of the night, imagining if I could have done something different, something better. I still missed the Kaylee that existed before everything collapsed. But I learned that there are battles you don't win with love. There are battles where, to save someone, you need to save yourself first. Today, when I see Connor sleeping peacefully, sprawled on the bed with his legs outside the covers, I realize I didn't destroy a family. I rebuilt a life. And sometimes that's all you can do.